Coming up on this edition of Main Street, preserving heritage. First, we head to Boyle County and visit the Perrryfield Battlefield to experience Kentucky as it existed in 1862. Next, we'll visit artist Russ Walkup, who's preserving Fort Knox one floorboard at a time. In Hopkins County, we find a group of women who pride themselves on piecing together history block by block. And finally, Clarks River Wildlife Refuge near Benton, a place where animals take center stage. Straight ahead on Main Street.
Funding for Main Street was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you who support quality programs such as Main Street that appear only on public television.
Hello and welcome to Main Street. I'm Barbara Deeb. On this edition of the program, we travel through South Central and Western Kentucky to see 4 examples of work preserving Kentucky's rich history and natural resources. There are very few places left in Kentucky where you can experience the land as it existed 150 years ago. Well, the staff at the Perryville National Historic Site are doing everything they can to preserve 140 acres of Civil War battlefield. So not only can you experience its timeless beauty, but you might learn some history as well.
The park actually got started when it was purchased from Squire Bottoms in 1901. They actually purchased the cemetery. It became an official state park in 1936. And since then, it was evolving from 19 acres to almost 800 acres, one of the finest preserved battlefields in the country. You can come and experience all of Kentucky here. You can see what Kentucky looked like in 1862 and be able to experience its wildlife. And you can't do that in too many places anymore.
It's a nature preserve. I mean, it's got grasslands, it's got woods, it has water streams. Doctor's Creek goes right down the middle of it. We have 10 miles of interpretive trails and the other 40 some interpretive signs out there, but you don't have to, if you're not interested in the signs, you don't have to read them, but you know, people go hiking.
We have hiking groups that come. We have folks that come and do geological tours for the rock formations around the creek. We have folks that just like to come out and picnic with their kids, and I really enjoy watching the children out here just playing on the swing sets. And we always love the history. We want you to come and experience and really visit for the history. And if I can get any of that into you before you leave, no matter what, I'm hoping somewhere down the line you take a little of that history with you.
It's the biggest battle ever fought in Kentucky. I mean, it's hard to fathom when you go out today and see these peaceful fields that's just so much death and carnage was here. The participants here after the war, both Union and Confederate, always remembered Perryville as some of the most intense fighting they did. And these guys were in all the battles.
It is the battlefield as it appeared in 1862. We're often very proud to say if a soldier could time travel and come back and walk across this field, he would say, I know this place, this is Perryville, because it looks so much the same. The landscape is a very rolling terrain. It's a typical Kentucky countryside. It's just a beautiful landscape to walk across today. It was a terrible landscape to fight on. Myself and Kurt, the manager, we worked very hard to try to figure out what that landscape looked like, and then we as a process, try to return it to what it actually looked like during the battle. So we spend a lot of days out here walking around going, I don't think that tree was there, maybe it was, maybe this tree line moved. And we used a lot of the original information from the soldiers to actually figure out what they were moving through, what the landscape appeared to as them, and then we tried to figure it out. And so far we've done a pretty good job at it.
We have to study the people that lived here at the time, the farmers, where their fences were. We do lots of deed research. And in the process, we do lots of genealogy on the local people that lived here. I mean, I have a whole family tree maker file of genealogy just of what we call the original owners of the battlefield. So not only do we give out information, we also get a lot from the descendants of not just the soldiers that fought here, but the people that lived here too.
Every year we rely on an army of volunteers just to keep the park in shape. And we have a wonderful maintenance staff, but they spend a great amount of their time just trying to mow and get the place looking good. If we want anything extraordinary, like the rebuilding of the log crib that's very prominently featured in one of the period drawings, that has to be all volunteer labor. We had the Civil War Preservation Trust Park Day in April. The volunteers came and they built 200 feet of period fence that had collapsed. We can't get that without the volunteers. So it takes literally an army of people to keep this place running, and then another army of people to put it back to the way it was in 1862.
What fascinates me is the juxtaposition between the peace and quiet and just relaxing atmosphere compared to the carnage of the battle that put this place on the map.
One of the places that I really love about the park is down on Jones's Ford and around Doctors Creek. That creek is lined with stone walls that were built in the 1840s, and there's nothing more beautiful than to walk along that path down there and see those walls still standing and listen to that creek. I mean, it's just peaceful as it can be, and gives me some clarity about my job and what I'm responsible for and who I'm responsible to.
The act of repurposing things is becoming a national pastime as crafty recyclers raise the bar from junk to art. For Allen County teacher Russ Walkup, a surplus of discarded wood plank flooring from abandoned Fort Knox barracks led to one-of-a-kind American flags, blending patriotism with history.
Well, I'm definitely a recycler. As you go around through this house and our property, I've got tables made out of spools. I've got my mantle back here is an old log cabin. I had a gal call me the first year that I started this, and she goes, "Sir, I want to know," she left a message on the machine, goes, "Where will you be displaying your art?" And I told her, I said, "Ma'am, I'm a gym teacher, I'm not an artist, and I don't consider this to be art. The wood kind of takes care of it on its own. It tells the story of what it is. I'm just kind of a puzzle putter together." During the Clinton administration, they recycled, they were actually auctioning the buildings off to the public. It was part of their program to things for not to end up in landfills. So what happened is they run a public auction during a war, which means it was extremely difficult to get on post. You had to have a lot of security clearance, a lot of credentials to get on. Greg, the gentleman that I got the wood from, had just retired from there. In my understanding, 3 guys showed up for 12 buildings and had to have them all torn down in 30 days. So here he's got all this hardwood flooring, he's got rafters, he's got everything that he tore these buildings down. They were stacked up at his house. And so he started selling the hardwood floor relatively cheap, and I bought some for my office. Well, I brought it home, did what Greg told me to do, took the nails out, planed it, tore the carpet out, tore the carpet pad up, put all the furniture in our bedroom, brought some lumber upstairs to start installing it, and we couldn't get the boards to go together. It took 2.5 months to finish what should have taken a weekend. And that's when the wood kind of got put off to the side, and we really didn't do a whole lot with it. So we're in the patio store walking out, and we were on our way, we were leaving actually. And my son looks over and says, "Dad, that looks like wood." And when I looked over to the side, Sure enough, it was a primitive looking flag, American flag, made to look like wood. They had gone to the trouble to acrylically paint wood grain on it. So the wheels kind of got to turn, and I thought, well, you know, I've got the wood out in the storage building, let's knock some out. I think I ended up making around 70 flags. I got invited to a craft show here in Scottsville, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. And took 70 flags. They opened the doors at 8. I was done by 9:30. The one thing that really makes these flags unique is that once they're gone, they're gone. They've got one barrack left, and they just moved it into the Patton historical area, and they're going to restore it because it's the only one left of its kind from World War II. The wood bears its use. The wood will show you where it was, what purpose it served in the floor. You know, soldiers from World War II that fought under Patton walked on this floor, and that's when I get cold chills. Guys that went to Korea and Vietnam, some didn't come home. They walked on this. This is historical wood for people who were soldiers, people that served our country. Some of the wood bears the marks of what it was used for. There's some yellow stripes on them. The yellow stripe dates back to World War II. At the time, you were asked to stand on a line. I call it the tow line. I've actually had people pick this up. I'll show them a strip of the wood. They'll lay it on the floor and actually show you how they were supposed to have stood. I mean, in a craft show. After they were done as basic training barracks, they got kind of ratty, so they declassified the buildings as processing. And so what happened is when the recruits got off the bus, they said, get on that white line, do what they tell you in that building, go to the next building, get on that white line, and stay on that white line. So if you see one that has a piece of white paint on it that actually looks like a strip, I didn't put that on there, the government did. That was the processing line during Korea and Vietnam. So there's a tremendous amount of history in this stuff. We have 4 basic sizes you'll see. The mother lode of all of them are the 43s. That's a 50 star, they have 11 stripes. The next size down is what I call a mantle size flag. If you ever go to a craft show and hang out behind me, that is probably the biggest thing these guys, I probably walked on those floors, I probably waxed them too. They used 99% of the guys that I've spoke to was Simonized car wax. They used wax, and in the early days, they used to use baby diapers and blankets. They would put a guy on a wool blanket, and they would pull him around, and that would wax the floor. That was World War II stories, all right? So that's how they waxed it. So what I do to prepare the wood to make flags with it, I just run it through and take off the grime, and I take off the wax, and leave all the other nuances in the wood as it comes. So that's where you get the character. I've had people at craft shows ask me about the significance of the stars. I just try to cram as many in that keeps it proportionate to what would look like a flag of that size. You have to realize you're locked into 2 1/4 inches tall, so the more you go up, the more you have to go out. And the more that you go out, the more stars you have to start adding. So there's a little bit of math and some proportion that works in there, but putting the stars on, I use the same star pattern, but the biggest of the big, the largest, it's usually around a 42, 43 inch flag by 24, 25 inches tall. They actually have 50 stars on them. What we put on the back is a small little saying of where the wood came from. That's got the gentleman's name that tore it down. So there's a small little authentication sticker on the back, and because these are limited, they're all signed and numbered by me. We did an original 750 run, and the guy who sold it to me didn't tell me he actually gave me more than, so I ended up with some extras. So we're actually on a second run. We're up to right around 700 on this, and we're just going to keep going until the wood's gone. I mean, you could not find a better purpose for reclaimed flooring considering where it came from. People that served your country walked on this stuff. And I don't know if I was chosen, but it just feels right.
Russ Walkup says he'll continue making those flags until the wood plank flooring runs out. But he can rest assured knowing that his flags have made it to buildings in Alaska and have been gifted to the families of veterans, of prisoners of war, and missing in action. In addition, celebrities like singer Jimmy Buffett and newswoman Diane Sawyer have received the flags. Now, if you're in Hopkins County and you're looking for a way to give back, you can stop by the Peacemakers Quilt Club, where on the fourth Tuesday of every month, over 40 women come together to work on several different projects as a means of preserving history and giving back.
The Peacemakers Quilt Club started when Vicki Eyre was teaching a class on basic quilting, and met a group of women who were very interested in continuing sewing as a group. And so they developed the Peacemakers Quilt Club of Hopkins County. The Peacemakers Quilt Club's purpose is to promote quilting to all generations, and the opportunity to share that with others in Western Kentucky, and to let them know that there are all kinds of community projects or community needs out there that quilters can become involved in. The Peacemakers Quilt Club began making quilts for our neonatal ICU about 8 years ago, and since then we've made over 800 quilts for the neonatal ICU. The babies who come into the world early, even though they're planned for, they're not always prepared for. And a lot of times there's not been a shower, and nobody's been out shopping, and there's nothing to bring them home in. So we make the quilts for the nursery so the babies have something colorful, something that can be theirs, something they become familiar with. The families have a little bit of a home atmosphere in the hospital. To be able to have something to wrap and comfort their babies and comfort their mothers and parents as well, it just meant something that we could do for others. The Soldier Block program began about 10 years ago, and it was started by a quilt group who saw a need for recognition to families who lost soldiers killed in a Desert Storm. And they started making soldier blocks, a very simple block out of a Civil War reproduction fabric. Our group found out about this project, which is the Home of the Brave project, and the blocks are made by each individual guild or club members or individuals, and are donated to coordinators for the Home of the Brave project. These coordinators and volunteers assemble the blocks into quilts, and as requests come in from families or friends of soldiers killed in action, the quilts are given to the families in honor of their loss. It's a way to be creative and show something that's made with quality. Our fabric is not the fabric that you would see in quilts that you'd see in department stores. And these quilts that we make will be around in 200 years, because if they're cared for well, you see quilts in museums from the 1700s, and these quilts are made by women who use natural products. They used it with love, and it's cared for and respected, and those quilts live on. And it's a way for a part of us to live on in the future when our bodies are long gone. It's a very close neighborhood of quilters. We're able to share our friendships. We have a very good support system with each other. We keep in touch with each other and help enable each other if we're having problems. In this little community of quilters we have now, we take a part and involve in each other's lives and support each other in the things that we enjoy doing. But basically what quilting is you find a pattern or a design that you really like, and then you choose the fabrics that you think will complement that design or pattern. Then you start cutting the patterns out and laying them out to sew them together again. And you put them together into blocks or units, and then when you have the blocks completed, you put them together in rows or sections until you have the body of the quilt. And then once you have the body of the quilt done or the top done, you select a backing that will go on the back that will complement the front of the quilt. Some people just use plain muslin, others like to use a printed fabric to go on the back. And then you also have to have a batting or a center. And there's all kinds of battings from bamboo to silk to cotton to polyester that you can get. The traditional cotton batting, when you make a quilt and it's washed, it'll shrink up and make it look like an antique, whereas the polyester battings will keep you a more flat look, and it'll look more like it's always a new quilt. So it depends on what you want your quilt to appear. How you want it to appear is the type of batting you'll select to use. So as a quilter, I say, look at your community and see where the needs are, and see if there's something that you can involve yourself in. And sharing quilting, either by making hats for the chemo for your cancer centers or for patients getting chemo, making quilts for the nurseries, lap quilts for nursing homes. But there are needs out there, and to become involved in our community and not isolate ourselves, get too attached to our TVs and our computers, to get out there and start helping one another and connecting with one another as individuals.
Clarks River Wildlife Refuge in Marshall County is a place of hidden beauty. Small parcels of land have been cobbled together to create a 7,000-acre wildlife refuge for animals that might otherwise vanish from the state of Kentucky. And you just never know what you'll see.
Clarks River is special, just one, because it's the only national wildlife refuge in Kentucky. That's first of all. And second is there's lots of things here that it's not readily observable. If you just were passing through, you might not notice it. But once you get here, you realize that there's a lot of treasures, a lot of things that you wouldn't think about every day when you go to a typical refuge. This is kind of atypical in a sense. It's a bottomland hardwood refuge, which a lot of refuges are bottomland hardwood, but it's atypical in that you don't just drive through and see a lot of stuff immediately, but once you get out and you take a little time and you're patient, I think that's what's special to me, is you kind of have to work for it a little bit. A wildlife refuge is a place that has been set aside specifically for the conservation of wildlife and their habitats. And we do that, and it has been done so that future generations can also enjoy wildlife and the benefits they bring to our lives. We're all about wildlife and habitat. That's number one, always will be, is on every refuge, and making sure that all those species are conserved so that everybody can enjoy them just like we have been able to. But environmental education here is a key for us. We put a lot of emphasis on that, and for lots of reasons. One, we want everyone to appreciate it as much as we do. We're afraid that if they don't appreciate it, they may not necessarily have the same passion to conserve it that we have. And we know that they're missing things by staying indoors, that the technology that's out there, that keeps them occupied. We all have very busy lives, parents do, and it's hard to get kids out to get that appreciation. So we actually do everything we can to go into the schools, convince the administrators to get those kids out here to the refuge. We work with them, we'll take them fishing. We do programs where they're hands-on. We don't want to do this talk to you thing so much as we do. We want to get them out, let them explore, get them feel what we feel. And it's really gratifying at the end of the day when we hear the kids saying, best field trip ever, and can I bring my grandparents here, can I bring my parents here? And we know that those kids got it. They got a glimpse of what it really means. It really is exciting for me to get someone else excited about what we do, especially someone who I think it's in all of us deep down, but I don't know that it's been brought out. And so if I can spend a day, a week, whatever, a minute with someone, tell them a couple of things, get their interest, get them interested, and then have them start asking me questions. Just dealing with the people is, and I love the wildlife, and I love doing the hands-on management. We ban birds, we do a lot of hands-on stuff, and it's very gratifying to put up a bluebird box and see bluebirds immediately, take to it. We've had that happen, within 5 minutes of putting it up. That's gratifying. Planning a reforesting area, and the next year seeing all the rabbits and maybe some quail or the deer using it, that's gratifying. But when I actually can talk to someone and I see that they are kind of get what I'm telling them, that's probably the most gratifying. Our refuge is a very rural area. It's a wooded area, and hunting is one of our primary uses. And that's not uncommon on national wildlife refuges at all. Hunting is one of our big 6 priority public uses that we foster. You know, we do wildlife observation is one of those big 6 opportunities that we also, environmental education is that we foster and try to promote. So this particular refuge, it is hunting and environmental education. That's the 2 biggies. Now, we do get quite a bit of birding. That happens, and wildlife observation is probably 3rd, and then fishing falls in there after that. But that's kind of how it ranks out at Clark's River. A wildlife refuge is set aside specifically to protect wildlife and their habitats. I mean, that's the purpose, the one sole purpose. And we're a hands-on agency. I mean, we actually do conservation, we practice it, we do timber stand improvement through cutting, we use fire, we do lots of things. If we perceive that through our research and through our science to benefit the species that we've targeted, you know, we're going to go in and be hands-on in the land. And again, it's solely for wildlife. That is what we're solely here to do on our national wildlife refuges.
Well, our journey has come to an end, but don't let it stop there. We welcome any questions, comments, or story ideas. You can write to us at Main Street, care of WKYU PBS, 1906 College Heights Boulevard, number 11034, Bowling Green, Kentucky, 42101. Or call us at 270-745-2400 or 1-800-599-2424. And don't forget the World Wide Web. Check out our webpage at the address on your screen. Here you can find our email address as well. We hope you've enjoyed this look at the interesting people, places, and things that make our Commonwealth so unique. I'm Barbara Deeb, coming to you from the Brock A. Berry Veterans Memorial Plaza in Bowling Green. Until next time, remember, we're just around the corner on Main Street.